Hello everyone, myself Sanat Kumar Swai, Assistant Professor at Vedang Institute of Technology. And in the previous classes, we have discussed about perception, its importance in an organizational setting. So in this class, we'll be talking about perpetual process in perception. What is the various types of perpetual process and how it is important in perceiving in perceptions. Okay. So we'll be going through a few slides and we'll see the perpetual processes. Okay. So perpetual process. What do you mean by perpetual process in an organizational setting? What do you understand by perpetual? See, we are talking about perception and perception, how we perceive, particularly to the behavior. In the behavior scenario, if we're talking about the behavior of the individual, how a person is going to perceive, and perpetual process refers to the individual or an employee's interpretation in terms of stimuli is in their work environment. So what happens is that this process greatly influences how employees are going to perceive various kinds of events, various kinds of situations, various kinds of people behavior within the organizations, and how that is going to impact their own behavior and how that is going to influence their decision processes. So we'll be going through a few examples and we'll see. Stimulus. What do you mean by stimulus? Stimuli. What do you mean by stimulus? Come from stimuli, right? Okay. What do you mean by stimuli? Reflex stimuli. Let's say something something comes immediately into your eyes. Automatically you shut down your eyes. There's a reflex. You reflex based on some kind of external factor. If something is coming into your eyes, definitely you're going to close your eyes. Okay, so that happens automatically. You're not going to, like, let's say a mosquito is sitting on your hand, is sucking your blood. So automatically, I mean, out of your stimuli, you strike the mosquito. Okay. So that's a stimuli. Okay, it comes automatically. It's nothing. I mean, but there are two types of stimuli. One is internal stimuli, and the other one is external stimuli. Your quick action, your quick response to any kind of situation. Okay, you don't want to kill those mosquitoes, but automatically when you see the mosquito, your hand goes on the mosquito. Okay. So the perpetual process, it begins with the stimulus. Okay, and that can be any kind of object, that can be any kind of event, that can be any kind of situation, or any kind of response from any kind of individual within an organization. So what happens that if we are talking about an organizational context, if you are talking about in the context of an organization, so how does a stimuli affect? Stimuli can include job assignment. What kind of job assignments you are being given? Okay. Second is your feedback from the supervisor. What kind of feedback you are receiving from your supervisors? Okay. Your interaction with the colleagues and organizational policies. How do you interact with your colleagues? Not only colleagues, that can be with your supervisor or your juniors as well, and various kinds of organizational policies. That is going to affect your stimulus. So the perpetual process starts with stimulus. What is your stimulus? And these are the stimulus. Okay, this stimulus is affects your. It includes all these kinds of factors within an organizational context. Okay. That can be a job assignment, that can be your job role, that can be your what kind of your feedbacks you are receiving from your supervisors or your seniors. Okay, the way you are interacting. Okay, various kinds of policies. Whether you intend that yes, you have a great role to play at this particular organization or not. So these are the these all includes in the stimulus. Yeah. For example, if we go through an example, you see, let's say a, a company, the, the company introduces a different kinds of grading system or evaluation system, okay, to evaluate or to appraise the performance appraisal, you can say, of the employees, okay, based on their productivity and innovation. What kind of productivity, how much productive they are, and how much innovative they are. So the the company that starts a new system, evaluating system. So you can see that this is a stimulus. This is a stimulus for the employees to perceive and react to. How they are going to perceive, how they are going to react to this kind of evaluation system. Okay. There can be a positive perception and a positive reaction, and maybe that can be a negative perception and a negative reaction. Okay. So this is a stimulus, we can say. Attention. Now, if you see all the stimuli which have been taken into consideration, not all the stimulus are being perceived in an equal way. Okay. For example, we see that various kinds of employees, they tend to focus on a particular stimuli and they tend to ignore the other stimulus. Okay. So what are the factors which influences this kind of stimulus while ignoring others? Those are like novelty, intensity, size, contrast, personal relevance, influence what individuals pay attention to their work. So these are the factors which plays a very important role in the work environment. And what kind of, see, you are working in an organization where you find the size of the organization is massive. People, I mean, the work, I mean, the employee is, they have a lot of employees. Okay, that's the number, the sheer size of number is massive. Okay. Your personal relevance is also, it influence the way the people pay attention to the work environments. Okay, so these are the factors which contribute to the attentions, and not ignoring to certain stimuli, and while accepting to certain and paying attention to particular stimulus. Okay. uh, See, this is also one of the example that there is a team meeting going on in an organization. Okay, what happens is that the employee, they may pay more attention to proposal. Those are in alignment to their interests and in alignment to those skills. They may they may pay more attention. They may be very much enthusiastic if that is an innovative type of idea, if that project is going to showcase various kinds of innovative ideas, whereas they may disregard to those kinds of ideas which is not in alignment with their interest, which is not in alignment with their skill sets. Okay, or they may be disregarding the repetitive or less relevant suggestion. They may not give a positive suggestion. They may not have a proper regard to those kinds of ideas. Okay. So that means your attention, it automatically goes to the skill set, I mean ideas and proposals which is in alignment with your ideas or interests. Okay. Organizations. Okay. Now let's say if once a particular set of stimuli is attended, then what happens is that the individual, they organize the information into coherent patterns. What do you mean by coherent patterns? In a sequence pattern based on their experiences, based on their expectations from the company and various kinds of schemes, what they are going to gain out of that organization. So this step involves categorizing and interpreting the stimuli to make sense of them. So they are going to categorize and interpret those stimulus which is going to make sense to them. That may not make sense to others, but that is going to make sense to them. So they try to organize those informations in a coherent pattern based on their own experience, based on their own expectations, and based on the organization's policies and schemes. Okay. See, this is also an example. What happens is that, let's say there's a manager, and the manager observes that an employee is persistently, in a long run, that a particular employee is arriving to his or her workplace. Okay. So what happens is that how that manager is going to organize this information. The manager has observed that the employee is coming to workplace on a regular basis, arriving late. So that manager is going to attribute this kind of behavior of the employee to lack of commitment, we can say, or that manager can attribute that there may be any kind of personal issues. Okay. So these behavior or attributes from the manager's side, what happens is that gain traction based on the previous experience with the employee. What kind of experience that manager has got or has with the previous employee, previous kinds of experiences. Okay. And the general expectations of punctuality, that whether that employee is consistently coming late to the organizations from the starting, or there is some issues in this particular time. That employee used to be punctual, but there may be some issue, and that is why that person is coming late. So this is the attribute of the manager towards the employee. Now, interpretation and judgment. So how does the if there is an stimuli, how do we interpret and how do we judge? How do we judge if there is any kind of stimuli? You see, we pass on the judgment based on our interpretation. Our interpretation may not be right all the time, or that may not be false all the time. Okay. So our interpretation involves attaching meaning to the organized stimuli. So if there is an organized stimuli, then we attached meaning as per our interpretation, and then we pass on the judgment. That can be that if we are talking about any kind of organizational setting. Okay, then what happens is that if there is an organized stimulus, then the manager or the employees of that organization, they attached meaning, they perceive any kind of meaning to that um, um, situation or that kind of stimulus, okay, based on their interpretation. So individuals use their cognitive filters. Okay, here we can say that those are the filters. Okay, biases and schemas to interpret information. Judgment refers to forming opinion or evaluation based on the interpreted stimuli. So exactly the way we are going to interpret on the stimuli, the way we are going to use our own filters, our own biases, and our own schemes. Okay, to interpret those informations, and subsequently we are going to pass on the judgment based on our opinions. Okay. Okay, example means let's say that there is an employee in any organization, okay, and he or she receives a criticism. The criticism may not be the very term may sounds negative, but criticism can be a positive term. We can use it in a positive term. That can be a constructive criticism. Okay. So in this case, let's say, for example, the employee receives a constructive criticism from his or her manager, immediate manager. on any kind of project he or she is working on. So what happens is that in that case, depending on their interpretation, the employee may perceive the feedback as an opportunity for growth and improvement. So that can be termed as a positive interpretation. So an employee who has received any kind of criticism, okay, um, he or she may perceive that yes, I have received this feedback and this is an opportunity for my growth and improvement, so that I can improve more, I can have more growth, I can have more productive level, my productive level can increase. So that can be cited as a positive interpretation. Whereas that they may view it as an unfair criticism and become defensive. So that can be termed as a negative interpretation. So in the contrary, what happens is that um, some individual, they may consider this as an unfair criticism, that this criticism should not have happened and this is unfair for me, and right, and that becomes a negative interpretation, and subsequently that is going to hamper the organization and the productive growth of the individual as well. Okay. Memory. Okay, what do you mean memory? Memory means the interpreted and judged information is stored in the memory. Okay, so what happens is that if something happens to you, let's say I'll give you an example. uh, in your neighborhood or in your community, there's something happened with you and your community member. Okay, so you keep those incidents alive in your memory and you interpret the past memory into the present. If something happens today, you recall those past memories and you interpret those memories which is stored inside your head and you judge accordingly. So and so, at that particular time, these things happened and this person behaved in this way. You respond to those kind of stimuli in the future. So that becomes a reference for you. That becomes a reference. So this is also one of the factor we can see. Okay. So similarly, let's say an employee or a staff who had received any kind of recognition or any kind of positive feedback for his or her project which has been successfully completed. So he or she is likely going to remember and associate positive feelings with similar kinds of opportunities or similar kinds of recognition in the future. Okay. So that what will happen, that is going to lead them to seek out such opportunities more in the future. Definitely, if an employee is going to receive a positive recognition or positive feedback for his or her contribution, definitely he is going to use that as a reference and seek more opportunities for such kind of recognition in the future. Right. So that's a good thing for the organization and for the personal growth of the individual. Okay. Okay. So with this, we have come to the end of the slide. So concluding, why this is important, why interpretation is important, why perpetual process is important. Okay, particularly in the Indian context. Okay, so in the Indian context, perpetual processes can be influenced by cultural factors. As we have already discussed, cultural factors plays a very important role. Okay, uh, um, such as collectivism. Okay, collectivism, hierarchical structures, and the importance of interpersonal relationship. Interpersonal relationship is very important, extremely important in any kind of perpetual process. For example, in an Indian employee may interpret feedback from a supervisor differently based on cultural norms that emphasizes the respect for authority figure. So culture also plays a very important role in interpreting, the way we interpret the information and the way we judge, pass on the judgment. Okay, so the cultural norms, cultural factors plays a very important role. Okay, and also our interpersonal relationship. Okay, thank you very much for your time. I believe we have understood all the slides pertaining to the perpetual processes. If you have any doubt by chance, you can just jot down those doubt, and I'll be more than happy to clear off your doubt. Okay, thank you very much.